Hello friends, it's me, and I had a break again. Sorry, but here I am. I'm ill. I have the lovely Rona, which is great fun. So underneath all of this beautifulness that we've got going on, to, you know, convince you all that I am a human being, I am merely a husk. Got my lemsip in my dog mug, and we're going to talk about some books. It's going to be a great time. You may or may not remember, in my last video, I said, oh, soon there'll be like favourite books of the year so far, mid-year freakout tag, all kinds of fun things coming. I was like, yeah, it's the end of June, loads of videos, gonna be a good time. Radio silence for 2 weeks. Basically, there will be no best books of the year video so far, because I haven't really had any. So this is just going to be general update, you know, little check-in for the year so far. I'm going to talk about what's going on. Not much, spoiler alert. Yeah, and just going to update you on some books that I've liked, what my plans are for the rest of the year, how my reading's going generally. I feel like all I'm doing at the moment is freaking update videos. This isn't an update, this is a mid-year check-in / why I haven't put up a best books of the year so far video. Basically, I've been in a reading slump for pretty much a year now, over a year, like on and off, essentially not really wanting to read, having kind of only middling thoughts about books that I have read. I haven't rated a book, or I have now. I've rated one book 5 stars since I made my last, my best books of the year so far video this time last year. And yeah, it's been a bit weird, and I'm still kind of struggling with managing like my mental health and like motivation for doing things that I love doing, which includes reading books, because I do love it. I do, and sometimes, you know, like I have to convince my brain that I do actually enjoy it and it is really good for me to do it. But yeah, it kind of felt disingenuous to be like, here are my favourite books of the year, when I kind of, you know, I've liked what I've read, but nothing feels like particularly like stand out. However, from this point onward, we're going to be optimistic. We're looking to the future. Some books I've read recently have really like made me feel optimistic for like how my reading is going, and just feeling like I've just read some really great books recently, and I've really enjoyed reading recently, so that's been nice. I think it was the first book I read in July was The Colony by Audrey, Magee, which has now been longlisted for the Booker Prize 2022. Whoop whoop. We'll get to that in a bit, as in the Booker long list. But yeah, The Colony, I listened to it on audiobook. It was a fantastic audiobook. Like, just I felt fully immersed in the characters and their thoughts and the setting. Basically, it's a book about an island off the coast of Ireland. I think it's set in kind of like the 80s and 90s, sort of the very beginning of the Troubles, and at least I think it's the beginning. And you essentially follow an English painter who has travelled to this island to paint, and yeah, it's kind of follow him. There's a French guy there as well who's trying to preserve the Irish language and doing a kind of study on it, but you get to know these two characters and all the people who live on the island, most of whom only speak Irish or predominantly speak Irish, but you also have the sort of background of the Troubles and the IRA kind of in the background. I really loved it because of the audiobook and because of how immersed I felt and how much I loved the characters. It's quite difficult for me to like detach like my emotional response and like how much I am immersed in a book from how like good it was. However, I also think it's excellently written. Like the way that you again, the way that you get to know these characters is just so impressive. The discussion, I was quite familiar with like the topics of like the discussions around Irish as a language and a kind of culture, and like the colonialism or like different methods of colonization, including like destroying language and through it destroying a culture. I just think that it was done really, really well. I don't know, I just loved it, and I'm really glad it's been longlisted for the book prize. So yeah, that was my first 5-star read since I read Mrs. Death by Selena Godin in July last year. So that was nice. I also read around the same time I was listening to Colony on the audiobook and reading Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Kupersmith. I was reading that on my Kindle while we were away on holiday, and that is also excellent, so good. So that was longlisted for the Women's Prize this year, and I heard some people talking about it and I thought this sounds amazing. Basically it's set in Vietnam, primarily in Saigon, and it kind of opens with a woman going missing, but also there's a lot of other like stories and kind of threads that you're sort of introduced to at the very beginning. Most of these little like separate chapters with different time periods and characters are involving like very, very creepy things and very kind of unsettling, slightly supernatural, like unexplained things, and it's all very like creepy and kind of ghosty, and loved all of that. But as it goes on, the book, like you figure out all of the kind of connections between all of these different characters, and the different threads kind of start coming together, and I loved that so much. I thought it was done so well, like how everything like starts to make sense. It's just a wonderfully like woven story. It just feels like all of these different parts coming together into this weird, creepy, like disturbing story about a woman who has moved to Saigon from the US, and feels really lonely and is kind of, yeah, trying to like reinvent herself. But it's also not really about her, like she's only a very small part of it, but yeah, it was just like stunning and I couldn't stop reading it. I was like constantly thinking about it, and it's really, really stuck with me. I am also currently reading 2 books that I think are really, really promising for like how my reading is going right now. So first one is Animalia by, who is this by? Jean-Baptiste. This was a gift from Kieran from Kiddie Books like last year, around this time last year actually, and we were going to do it as a buddy read, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it like, you know, before I start uni again, because you know then my life will be crazy. I didn't do it before we started uni again. I've only got around to reading it now. Kieran has since read it ages ago and really enjoyed it, and now I'm reading it and really enjoying it. So this is about it starts off with a family who own a farm in France at the kind of beginning of the 20th century, and you kind of follow this family and their descendants through the 20th century. So I mean you follow like the first kind of batch of family members for a bit, through sort of the First World War, and then you skip to the 80s, and you follow sort of like the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, as their farm has like grown into this huge like pig producing factory essentially. It's really horrible. It's so disturbing, and really like there are some nasty bits in this. Like it's really quite graphic in terms of like the pig farming for a start. Lots of like, I mean on the back there's a quote that just says Animalia is a book about sex and violence. That's the start, there's more to the quote, but like it's about sex and violence. So if you don't want to read about those, wouldn't go near this. However, the descriptions of everything, it's very slow, so most of it is like descriptions of nature, but then you also get descriptions of the sex and the violence, mostly violence, and honestly they are so vivid and so beautiful. They will stick with me forever. Like, my god, it's like some of the scenes, there's descriptions of like people in the trenches in World War One, like animals being taken to a farm. You can't even really call it a farm, like, you know, taken for to be used for like meat in World War One. And honestly, it's horrendous, and like but so incredibly written. Like, I've never read a book that's so like written like this. And I'm reading it incredibly slowly. Like, I've been reading this since like the end of June, but it is so good. I'm also listening to, this is going to be a really long video, isn't it? I can tell already. I'm also listening to Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I've had this on my TBR for years, like, it's kind of stupid at this point. So this is about well, it's interesting. It's basically about a world where there has been a pandemic. Most of, like, the vast majority of the world's population has died within about a week or so. The world just kind of, like, society just collapses, and because everyone is dead, there's like infrastructure and everything are just fallen apart, and it follows a group of actors and musicians like 20 years after the collapse, and they travel around like performing Shakespeare and performing music, but also it kind of switches back to kind of people linked to this group of actors before the collapse happened as well. So there's quite a lot of the narrative that takes place in the kind of before time as well, which is sort of like modern day. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this. It's very weird, obviously, reading it in our current time, especially now I've freaking got COVID, and it's like, you know, reading about people like dying of this flu-related disease, like alone in their houses, and I'm like, it's a bit much right now. But also, it's like there are certain points, like certain things that are just like describe the feeling of, obviously that like what happens in this book is way more extreme than what's happened over the last few years, but like just the feeling of like, you know, there will never be a kind of, you'll never go back to like how it was before, and the kind of like the feeling of like a line in, you know, in the sand of a kind of before time and an after time, but also like hoping, even though you know that it's like what's the word, like even though you know it's futile, like and wrong, hoping against hope that there will be like that someone will just come along and save you and everything will go back to normal. Like there are some parts of like descriptions of those feelings in this that I'm like but yeah, also like the theatre stuff, there's a character called Miranda in it as well, who then, you know, like it's I'm like, why am I reading this now? But also loving it. So yeah, I'm glad I'm finally getting to it, because I am really enjoying it. Who knew? I forgot about my lemsip. Is it gonna have gone cold? No, it's beautiful and lemony and clearing me out like nobody's business. Okay, let's talk about the book along list. So I predicted 4 books out of 13. I'm kind of interested in the list because it's like there's lots of ones that I haven't heard of. Yeah, I mean, this is the fun of like prizes. There are always loads of wild cards, and those are the most interesting ones to me because I'm like, yes, introduce me to new things I have never heard of. So I'm not going to read the entire long list. It's not going to happen. However, I am going to read some, and the ones that I'm most interested in are Glory by NoViolet Bulawayo, because it's about Zimbabwe and like the I think the coup in Zimbabwe, but retold so that it's kind of like the society as animals. So it's kind, I mean, people keep comparing it to Animal Farm in that way, but I don't think there are even like people in Glory, but there are people in Animal Farm. Anyway, I love Animal Farm. I'm super interested in African like post-colonial history, so it kind of seems like a no-brainer. I'm like, I will definitely read this one at some point. Probably not like soon, but at some point when I can get my hands on it. Small Things Like These, I can't remember who it's by. This is about Ireland again, and I think, I don't know, it's about like women in Ireland or something. The reason I'm probably going to read this one is because it's really short and it's on Scribd on audiobook, and I think it's like 2 hours long or something, so I'll probably just read that, you know, like once I finished Station 11, I'll probably just listen to that. And yeah, also it seems to be quite polarising at the moment, like people are sort of, I don't know, lots of people have likened it to like a kind of weird, like a Christmas kind of cereal, where it's quite like sentimental and a bit, and I don't know, I'm like, I think someone on Kieran's Discord said that it would be the kind of book that you'd like finish and go, huh, and then like gift to your mum or your auntie for Christmas, which is a read, and I love it. So I'm kind of intrigued just to see, but also won the Orwell Prize, so I'm like, interesting. I'm interested. Nightcrawling by Leila Mottley I'm really interested in because it's the youngest ever person to be longlisted for the book prize. She's freaking 19. It's the worst when you're like early 20s and people who are in their teens are like doing amazing things and you're like, I'm not meant to feel old. I'm 22. Like, stop making me feel old. This isn't right. But yeah, it's also about like, I don't know, the justice system in the US and like policing and young people, like a community of young people who like walk around cities in the night. I don't know, but it sounds really cool and I'm into it. Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies by Maddie Mortimer. This one sounds fascinating because I think it's about a kind of, well, it's about like one character and her family, but you mainly learn about like the main character and sort of like the people around her. But part one of the perspectives I've heard is like from her cancer that she has, and I'm fascinated by that idea. Yeah, give me weird narrators all day long. Love that. Case study by Graeme Macrae Burnet, I think his name is. This one sounds like right up my street because it's set in the 1960s, I think. It's about a psychiatrist, well, no, a woman who believes that her sister's psychotherapist drove her to kill herself, and she then decides to kind of go like undercover and pose as one of like a client for this psychologist. I keep using different words interchangeably, it's fine, and kind of see what happened. But as far as I know, it's like mixed, it's made up of these like mixture of kind of fictionalized like notebooks from this person, but also like biographical information and research that the author's done about this psychologist who was like a real person. It sounds amazing, like mental health and slash psychology, weird mixture of fiction and non-fiction. I'm into it. It sounds great. The Trees by Percival Everett kind of sounds like a literary like murder mystery thing about mysterious deaths and like I think like lynching and stuff in the US. Apparently it's really funny but also devastating, and that mixture is a mixture I can get behind. So also it's on Scribd as an audiobook, so definitely gonna listen to that one. The Seven Moons of Maali Almeida, I can't remember who this is. It's by a Sri Lankan author, and it just sounds so weird and fun. I mean, not like that weird. It's about a guy who's died and then he wakes up in the kind of afterlife, and he has to like go on a mission to like I think like direct the people that he loves most to this like store of photos that will then like I don't know, be released and kind of change history or something. It sounds cool, and as far as I can tell, like no one who I know has like, no one who I've seen like reacting to the long list and stuff has heard of this one, and it sounds wonderful. Also After Sappho, again I can't remember who it's by, but I was initially like hesitant about this one because I thought it wasn't written by a woman, but now I found out it is written by a woman, and she's a comparative literature like has a PhD in comparative literature, so I'm like, hello woman, love you. But it's about like a kind of, you know, group of like literary women at the beginning of the 20th century, like Virginia Woolf and kind of all those sort of like lesbian slash bisexual people who like, you know, writing at the beginning of the 20th century. And again, like Case Study, it's kind of a mixture of like fiction and like speculative non-fiction. I don't know, it sounds fascinating. I'm not sure how like I'm gonna feel about people speculating on like real people's lives, but I'm interested. But yeah, the reason I was like unsure when I thought it was by a man was because I was like, man speculating on like a load of dead lesbians' lives. That doesn't sound quite right. But now it's a woman and she's a complex graduate and I'm like, love you. I'll also probably read Booth by Karen Joy Fowler because it kind of sounds like my thing. It's like historical fiction about John Wilkes Booth, I think, the guy who killed Abraham Lincoln, and his family, who were like all like massively kind of like celebrity actors at the time. And yeah, I'm like very much into that kind of historical fiction that like follows one character and their family like over a life. Love that. So I'll probably get around to that. Also, my library have it on ebook. I'll probably also read Treacle Walker. Is it Treacle Walker? Yes. By whoever that person is, Alan Garner, because it's on script and it's also short. So I don't know if I've just listed the entire long list. I think the only one I haven't mentioned is Trust by Hernan Diaz, which I'm not sure if I'm interested in it, to be honest. There's probably other ones that I'm missing, but anyway, that's my thoughts officially out there into the world. Hot takes done. Okay, last thing in this weird video, my plans for the rest of the year. I'm gonna try and get back on track with actually reading instead of going on TikTok and playing Tetris. I'm gonna try and read either 20 pages of a book every day or listen to half an hour of an audiobook every day. And I reckon that's really doable, but I'm just gonna try and like keep track of it, and like actually like, I don't know, track how much I'm reading and like whether I'm meeting that goal, and like see if it's like a way too like small goal and whether I can, you know, actually make it a lot like more ambitious, and but also like not feel guilty and not beat myself up if I'm not feeling like I'm reading enough. Like I gotta do what I gotta do. August is Women in Translation Month, aka one of my fave months of the year. So I have loads of books on my TBR that are by women in translation, books that I had on my TBR last year when it came into August, and I was like, I'm gonna read these this month, and then I didn't. But also new books that I've bought since. Yeah, I'm gonna try and do a lot more reading women in translation because I haven't been that good on reading translated books this year. It's fine. But yeah, try and keep up with that. But also, you know, Booker is happening and I'll try and read some of those books. So, but also August is going to be an absolutely stupid month for me as well because I'm, you know, going to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and I will be moving house at the end of like the month. So moving again. Yay. So yeah, it's like going to be pretty mad, and also I'm working quite a lot and I have COVID. Like who knows what's going to happen, but most importantly I will be reading what makes me happy. So if I'm not enjoying something, I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to do it. It's not going to happen. And I'm not going to put pressure on myself. I'm not going to be mean to myself if I don't meet goals or I don't like read enough or do enough of anything. I'm not being mean to myself anymore. I'm not doing it. Yeah, I hope you're doing really well. And hopefully I will probably see you soon. Look after yourselves.